Ohio State is a playoff team with Will Howard at quarterback.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ohio State fans have wanted a new quarterback for quite a long time, and they got one as former Kansas State quarterback Will Howard committed to Ohio State. Welcoming Buckeye fans to a Friday edition of Locked On Buckeyes here on Friday, January 5th in the year 2024. I am your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast, and today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Joining us today in a show that was planned to happen at some point in time, but didn't know what happened on this day when this big news came in, is Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. And Drake, before I want to hear anything from you, I got to make one statement about Will Howard. The Buckeyes wanted a quarterback to come in that made them a playoff contender. And that's what Will Howard is. They would be a playoff contender in the 14 playoff. And I think in the 12, automatically, they'll be in that field as well.
I'll tell you this, Jay. I think Ohio State, with or without Will Howard, is still a playoff contender and should be in a 12-team playoff every year. That is, there's no question asked, in my opinion, from even a Big 12 perspective. Ohio State is one of what I consider to be 8 to 10 teams in the country that can win a national championship year in and year out. That's a short list of elite programs. Ohio State's one of them. And what they just got in a quarterback is Will Howard, who I wouldn't say is elite, but can be. And the reason I wouldn't say Will Howard is elite is because there's still something out there to be desired in his numbers. There's a point in time this year where Kansas State fans were saying, look, it's time. Will Howard has progressed out of Kansas State. And when he left, there wasn't a large murmur from Kansas State fans that the program was going awry. They were ready for a new era in Manhattan. And it felt like Will Howard was ready for the same. That's why he entered the portal. There were moments, flashes of Will Howard being one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the country. If you harness that, if you put the pieces that Ohio State will around Will Howard compared to a Kansas State, he's going to be just fine and will be playoff caliber and national championship caliber. It's just a matter of how can you harness the best Will Howard.
I think you used the word dynamic. Was that what you used to describe him as a quarterback?
Very much so, yeah.
At 6'5", about 240, Drake, that's not normal to say about a guy of that size just throwing the rock all over the field.
Well, you'd be shocked to hear he had 19 rushing touchdowns during his career at Kansas State. And I was too, as I'm doing a little bit more research in the last 2 weeks when he transferred out. I thought, all right, why are these Kansas State fans happy that he's gone? Why are some of them rejoicing that the Avery Johnson era is in Manhattan? And look, I'm shocked to see how well Will Howard did with his legs. And maybe the reason we took away from that was them having Adrian Martinez in there and Avery Johnson in there and their ability to run the football. When you're compared to those guys, you're definitely not seen as the dual threat. But at 6'5", the ability to use his legs to get into the end zone, in the red zone, is something you need, especially in the Big Ten, where you have hotly contested defenses that get tighter in the red zone. You see a lot of field goal kickers in the Big Ten that are top notch. Will Howard is going to be anti-field goal kicker for the way that he can get in the end zone when he's down there. Now, on dynamic, yes, but also the word inconsistent. Again, look at his QBR over the course of his last 5 games, and it's 94, then 53, then 91, and 83, and then 69. He fluctuates. And in some games, you would see, time to press the button and bring in Avery Johnson to give you the dynamic backup. But with something you're going to talk about the rest of the show, the dynamic quarterback room, not just dynamic quarterback, but room that Ohio State has, is going to give you options and packages. And I'm hoping that Ryan Day and company actually use that. You don't have to lean on Will Howard to do everything. Kansas State never did, and it worked out in their advantage. They were a good football team.
You know, when I watched him play, and I watched some highlights and some tape of him recently, I was not so much now the legs and the way he utilized his legs always pops off.
Yeah.
But man, big guy, big arm, and he knows how to use it. That's one of the things that I think Ohio State fans next year will be like, wait, we have a guy that can consistently get the ball downfield to our receivers that want to catch the ball downfield in one-on-one situations. They'll be happy to have that in Columbus.
He can throw a slant route. And Jay, look, that right there, it might sound like I'm trying to diss the kid, but if you watch enough college football like you and I do, there are not a lot of quarterbacks that can throw the easiest route in football, and it's a slant route. I see so many guys that miss the target, throw it too slow, it gets tipped at the line. Not this guy. It is on a rope every single time, and it's on the money. I watched him in person 3 times over the course of his college career, and I saw him pick apart opposing secondaries. When given an offensive line like he had at Kansas State, that's what he can do. Not only can he get outside of the pocket, use that frame to fall forward for a couple of yards in short yardage scenarios, he can take it over the top, but I think he's best in that mid-range. I love watching the way that Will Howard stands tall, takes his time. He doesn't freak out. He's old. He's experienced. And he delivers. The guy started multiple games his freshman year due to an injury to Skylar Thompson in 2020. So he's seen a lot of college football, and he's seen some good defenses in the Big 12. It's a step up in the Big 10 for sure. But what he brings you is a calm presence that can fire a slant route. And that is a lot more than I can say about a whole lot of college quarterbacks.
How is his pocket awareness?
Pocket awareness, great. Like I said, he is can I use the quote earlier? If you want to teach, this is what I said about Will Howard, and not just his pocket presence, but his leadership. If you want someone to build a ship, don't teach them how to put parts together. Make them long for the endless immensity of the sea. Will Howard is going to make Ohio State fans long for the endless immensity of the sea. That's what I have to say about his pocket presence. He's the leader. He is the guy. And even when he's not on the field, he's cheered on the next guy. When Avery Johnson was in to run the football for Kansas State, when Will Howard was banged up, and that's part of that as well. He hasn't stayed healthy consistently, but when he's on the sideline, he's still up and at it. Pocket presence, leadership. You got the guy. You got the guy in Will Howard, who is also going to be a fan favorite. He's going to walk in day one, and fans are going to love him.
Drake, it sounds like you're describing a guy that Ohio State has been desiring this season at quarterback. I was a guy that defended Kyle McCord throughout the year, and even more so after he transferred. I kind of found myself kind of defending him because people were throwing stones at him when he didn't deserve those stones to be thrown at him. He was a guy that first-year starting quarterback. You're going to have ups. You're going to have downs. You're going to throw picks, only through 6. You're not going to throw for 4,000-plus passing yards. Like, that's not expected. But what he did this year was pretty good for the circumstances that were surrounding him. So I found myself defending McCord. But I also saw there are things in his game, leadership maybe, in a different style of leadership, or maybe the pocket awareness, which I asked about.
Yeah.
Maybe there was just a different style that needed to be happening on the field or in the locker room for the team to be more successful on offense. You're describing things that Buckeye fans have been desiring. And as much as I like McCord, I'm glad Will Howard is transferring to Ohio State. And even if McCord and Howard are the same with their arm talent, Will Howard's legs make him a different animal at quarterback for Ohio State next year.
Yeah, and look, Will Howard is not the kind of guy that you run an option play and he's going to break it with his speed for 45. He's
done it, though.
I've done it
with my eyes.
He's done it, but he is more of the when needed. He's smart in that way of, look, he's not going to risk it with his legs when he doesn't have to, and with his arm, he usually doesn't risk it. Now, when you see 24 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, that's not the usual pedigree of a 40 touchdown, 35 touchdown, and 7 interception guy, right? That's who you want in the transfer portal. So let me give you this. When it comes to Kyle McCord, he was hotly contested. In my opinion, Jay, I think you really landed the plane. He wasn't the darling. He wasn't Ohio State's darling. Your quarterback is supposed to be the guy who could throw 2 picks in a game, come to the podium, and everybody still loves him because he says the right things. He embraces the university and the fan base well. I don't want to crap all over Kyle McCord, who just transferred, but I do want to say there's got to be that in a quarterback for him to win over the fan base, to win over a university, to lose a football game, because that happens, or to throw 2 picks, because that happens, and still be beloved. I think Will Howard has that edge, not just in the locker room, with the fans too, to have, hey, look, we lost. I threw 2 picks. I have to be better. We have to be better. He's that kind of character. And to me, as a football fan, that's where you can throw 30 touchdowns, but also 10 interceptions and still be your school's quarterback. That's so key.
We've heard a lot about Will Howard's strengths from Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12. But what about his weaknesses? Let's dive into that next after the break. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150, guys, in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays and more. If you are someone looking to make some money and put some money down on the College Football Playoff National Championship, currently the spread is Michigan -4.5. I don't like it. I'm sure you don't like it, but definitely find a side to put your money on to make some money on Monday night. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So I don't like coming on shows and opening things up with a negative comment or something that's more of a hot take or just my own personal take that gets people saying Jay's being negative, Jay's throwing stones at so-and-so. And so sometimes you got to do it. I've had to do it this week about Ryan Day. I didn't want to open this up about negative stuff with Will Howard. What are some weaknesses that you see in his game?
Yeah, certainly inconsistency being the first. You don't know.
Mentioned that. You mentioned it.
Right, which version of Will Howard you're always going to get from his QBR, what that looks like game to game. And look, if you go up and down his stat lines, which I need to add some context, the Iowa State game where he was 24 for 48, there was a snowstorm where there was 1.5 feet of snow on the ground in that ball game in Manhattan. You look at the Texas game where he's at -23 rushing yards, I think what the number was. That's because the Texas defensive line was dominating Kansas State, and he still threw for 327 yards. Look at the Kansas game where he only had 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. I watched that one start to finish, and he looked bad. I walked away thinking, I see why Kansas State fans are ready for there to be a new era in Manhattan. The Baylor game, though, 19 for 29, 235, 3 touchdowns. Felt like that game encompassed what he does best, and that is play. When playing an inferior opponent especially, he plays up and puts on a show. Watching that game, there was nothing Baylor could do, despite being, them being porous, to stop him. Houston, crisp. At TCU game, he just does enough when asked to do so. But with that comes the inconsistency on the top side. When you need somebody to go win the game at the end, is Will Howard always going to be that guy? No. The answer is no. He is not, to me, elite or national championship caliber, because he has not shown that level of play consistently enough.
I was hoping that was a different response to that statement you made. I was hoping it was like, oh yes, he can, but no, he can't. Which really, in my head, as you're saying that about him and weaknesses, he's surrounded with talent that's different than what he had at Kansas State.
100%.
So
100%.
with the receiving room, I think the receivers next year are actually going to be better in totality than they were this year. I'm not the biggest Julian Fleming guy in the passing game.
Yeah.
I understand his leadership. I understand his run blocking as a receiver. But in the passing game, like what you're out there to do is catch the ball. I wasn't really saying throw the ball to him. But Emeka Egbuka, not sure what Marvin Harrison Jr. is doing. I think he's going to the NFL. That's my assumption. But with the younger receivers there, Will Howard will have so much talent at receiver and then also talent at tight end and running back that will make his job easier. So some of the inconsistencies you've talked about, I wonder how the elevated talent at Ohio State will maybe limit the inconsistent play that he had at Kansas State.
Yeah, that's why I put a pin in those for 2 reasons, really. The first being the talent at Ohio State is better than Kansas State. You can't argue with that. The second reason I throw a pin in it is injuries. If we see a completely healthy Will Howard the rest of this year, can he be what Michael Penix Jr. was? Now that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot. Look at what Michael Penix Jr. was when he got hurt. It was what he could be, right? But he's inconsistent because of injury. We haven't seen him at his top level. Then he goes to Washington, who has a national championship caliber roster. Obviously, they're right there, and he balls out. Will Howard can do that. I can't confidently say that he will because of what I've seen, but he's got that potential, and I've seen that in flashes. Now with the talent of Ohio State, given that he has been tossed the key, he went from having a real blue chip 1994 Chevy top. Yeah. Well, he had like a good old-fashioned, it's still running at Kansas State, and I love that kind of blue-collar football. But at Ohio State, here's the keys to the Maserati. Drive it. And as long as he doesn't drive it off the cliff, and I don't think he will, now with this level of talent, staying healthy, getting oil changes when needed, he's going to be just fine. And that's why, Jay, I think this is a win for Ohio State because Will Howard's upside and experience gives hhim an edge. Well, do I think he is the key that could beat Michigan? Can't say yes yet, but there's a chance.
Not diving in there yet. That's going to come later on, possibly next week. But when I think about Will Howard, though, the quarterback, this is – let me go in my brain really quick. He's the most experienced quarterback Ryan Day's had at Ohio, well, outside of JT Barrett back in 2017, but that was a long time ago.
I was barely alive for that. Yeah, we didn't have to get in that.
Dwayne Haskins, 2018, first time being a starter. 19 and 20 with Fields, first time being a starter. Stroud, 2 years, first time being a starter. Same with this year with McCord. Will Howard has the most starting experience out of any of Ryan Day's quarterbacks outside of his first year as Ohio State's OC. So I really wonder if Ryan Day takes a different approach because of the leadership qualities that Will Howard brings in and the experience that he brings to the table to Columbus. I believe, Drake, you may correct me, I think he's had 30 starts during his career. Yep. So that number there, 30, that's huge. I mean, most of the quarterbacks Ryan Day has coached as head coach, and even Dwayne Haskins, they haven't played 30 games total. Yep. So now you add in 30 starts, you add in the experience, you add in the arm, you add in the talent, the dual threat, which is so weird, 6'5", 240, but the dual threat impact that he has on the field. Buddy, I'm looking to see what kind of version of Ryan Day we get next year.
That's great.
Does he kind of take a different approach with the offense, back off a little bit, and be more on specific with the task of helping Will Howard? Because of this leadership, this offense could be different. Not let's say it's going to be like drastically different, but it could be led in a way that you have a quarterback who knows how to lead you, and it could lead to a win over Michigan, which, trust me, we all want, but also could lead to not just that win, success in the playoff in the upcoming season.
Yeah, and we have to go back to it again. Using the words dual threat, I don't know if 24/7 would, but we have to with what I've seen from him. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but he just kind of does it sometimes. And bringing that level of experience that you mentioned. Now, I will say 27 games Kansas State has played. The last 2 years, they played 27 games. He started 17 of those. So he's spent his fair share of time on the bench due to injury, due to being banged up and getting limited play, or splitting time with an Adrian Martinez or an Avery Johnson. So this is not a guy, while he has a lot of experience, I know I've touched on that, he doesn't have experience at the top level because of splitting time, because of the fact that he has been injured so often. So with that, is it a scenario where Ryan Day says, here are the keys truly to the Maserati, I'm going to throw them to you, Will Howard, this is your team? I think he can, but keep in mind, 17 out of 27 games the last 2 years, a history of being injured, has split time with other dynamic quarterbacks. Those things still are at play here. And that's why, again, I can't give it an A+ for Will Howard.
Drake, appreciate you coming on the show. Guys, coming up next, we'll kind of compare Will Howard and Kyle McCord and see how they stack up. The previous Ohio State QB1 and the guy who I believe will be calling the shots for Ohio State's offense in the fall. If you want to follow Drake Toll on X, go there. Go at Drake C. Toll. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and even theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Gametime picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and roll for or less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. This episode is also brought to you by Billiards Plus. Billiards Plus has the best selection of pool tables, game tables, shuffleboard tables, and more, and the best service in Central Ohio. And did you know Billiards Plus has top-of-the-line grills with up to 30-year warranties that's longer than most roofs? Billiards Plus carries the best pool tables from Brunswick, Ohaston, Canada, Billiards, and more. Plus, top-of-the-line grills from PK, Napoleon, Memphis, and the Griddle. That could very well be the last grill you own. The perfect gift for any occasion is in stock at Billiards Plus. Go big with an awesome pool table or shuffleboard table, or a little more modest with a dartboard or poker table, no matter the season. Billiards Plus has you covered for all your indoor and outdoor entertainment needs. And the people at Billiards Plus are the best part of the experience. Kenny, Sarah, and the whole entire staff will take amazing care of you. Billiards Plus, visit their showroom on Dublin Center Drive in Dublin. If you are someone looking to get Ohio State news, updates, and analysis sent right to your phone, for example, an instant reaction to Will Howard committing to Ohio State, send a text to 614-587-7853. Once again, that is 614-587-7853. When you sign up, you will get a 14-day free trial. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this is automatically an upgrade over Kyle McCord. He was not the best quarterback in Columbus. Will Howard brings an element with his legs that Kyle McCord does not have. So automatically, that makes Will Howard the front runner, and he already is the winner in this contest between McCord and Howard. And I thought about this myself. I tried to compare the two a little bit. I tried to dig into it. I tried to watch the tape and let that tell my eyeballs and show me who is the better quarterback. But right now, based off the things we have seen and heard, I don't think it's immediately an upgrade at quarterback. I think Ohio State would have been better suited to have Kyle McCord at quarterback in 2024 over Will Howard. However, that can change during the season. But based off the things that we have known about Kyle McCord and the things we know about Will Howard, you're bringing in a guy that, one, has not been healthy during his tenure in Kansas State. Kyle McCord banged up a little bit, but didn't miss any games. So right there, you know Kyle McCord brings that level of mindset to him. Also, I don't know the severity of Will Howard's injuries. I'm sure at times at other schools, maybe Kyle McCord may have missed some time due to his ankle injury. But no, even being injured, what do we find? Kyle McCord had a good game, consistent games over and over and over while he was banged up this year. But the one thing I think about why Kyle McCord is a guy that is the reason why he is currently, as it currently stands, is the better option for Ohio State at quarterback if he were still available. One, he knows the offense. Two, he knows the receivers. And three, I think he's only going to get better in the upcoming season. Same for Will Howard, but I truly think Kyle McCord will do some good things at Syracuse in the fall. For Will Howard, though, he can get better. And I saw someone in the YouTube comment section saying, hey, if Will Howard had Ohio State's players and receivers around him, he would have better numbers. Absolutely. But the thing is, though, that inconsistent play that Will Howard had, a 90-plus QBR at one point, down to a 50, back up to an 80, down to a 60. Well, that up and down and back and forth type of inconsistent play, that's not really what you want from your quarterback, your starting quarterback. It doesn't matter if you have All-Americans at every position or not. It does not matter. You don't want a quarterback that's occasionally inconsistent. Now, at the same time, while he is occasionally inconsistent, over 2,600 passing yards, 24 passing touchdowns, 351 rushing yards, 9 rushing touchdowns. And last season, yes, there were 10 interceptions that he threw. However, there was still some inconsistent play. And many of you say Kyle McCord's inconsistent. Kyle McCord this, Kyle McCord that. What did we find? There were some defenses that slowed him down. It happens to every quarterback. My favorite quarterback growing up, and still my favorite quarterback of all time, is Peyton Manning. You know what defense messed up Peyton Manning in the regular season and the postseason? That 3-4 defense. You never know where the fourth man's coming from. Now you may say, Jay, you got 3 down linemen, you got a hefty guy in the middle, and some guys that are hefty, not heftier, but still hefty on the outside as well of the line. You got a guy walked up on the side. He might not come. He might drop back. He might bring somebody else. But Peyton Manning's a really good quarterback, a really smart quarterback. How bad did it trip him up? Well, there are teams that he fell to in the playoffs consistently that he struggled to beat. The Steelers, the Chargers, and the Patriots. What do they all run? That 3-4 defense. And so no matter what, there are things that McCord this year, when he saw things for the first time, yes, it tripped him up. That's normal. That's a part of the game. This is one thing that if you say, hey, a quarterback, when he sees something for the first time and he trips up, oh, that means he's bad. No! That means that the defensive coordinator on the other side knew what to throw at that quarterback so that quarterback would be tripped up in real time. Kyle McCord, to me, I don't think it's an immediate upgrade, but based off the leadership qualities and the experience, yes, it is. But on the field, I can't ride with Will Howard in this conversation. I will ride for Will Howard in the future and say, look, I believe he's going to be the QB1. I don't think you transfer to Ohio State if he's not going to be the starting quarterback. Oh, one other thought here before we close up shop. I haven't got into this thought yet here on the show, but based off some things and the timing of this announcement, I'm sure some of you might be thinking about this as well. When it comes to Ohio State bringing Will Howard in for a visit after the Cotton Bowl, think about this. I have heard, I don't know if it's true, but someone said, hey, this relationship has been going on for about a month where they've been communicating back and forth about, hey, Will Howard coming to Ohio State to be a quarterback. I believe I heard Ryan Day say, yo, we're not going to the portal. And I'm like, wait, you literally told Kyle McCord you plan on going to the portal to get a quarterback. If he wants to stay in Columbus to compete, so be it. So I'm not really sure which one was actually true. I do know which one was true. I think we all do know what was true. But the timing of this announcement, there's 2 things. Both could be reality. Not sure. But one, this announcement came when Ohio State felt comfortable bringing Will Howard in for an official visit, which came after the bowl game. Okay, great. But also, what do we have right now? The early portal window is closed. Ohio State quarterbacks or players cannot enter the portal right now. They have to wait until the second portal window opens during spring practice, which is towards the end of spring practice. And I say that to say this. If Ryan Day purposefully waited to bring Will Howard in for a visit post-bowl game, okay, that's smart. But if he waited to bring him in for a visit after the first portal window opened, so he had more guys in his quarterback room in the spring, that could be strategic. And also, that might ruffle the feathers of some of the quarterbacks in the room. Now, we did see Lincoln Kenholtz on the Instagram said 10 toes down. Not normally something that people would say in a statement to say, I ain't going nowhere. But he posted pictures of himself at Ohio State. It wasn't like 10 toes down. He's on the beach. No, it's 10 toes down. And he's posting pictures of him in a Buckeye jersey saying, hey, basically, I ain't going nowhere. Great. Maybe Devin Brown started a trend where he had the burn the boats picture on the Twitter or on the X. Not sure. But the timing of this commitment, a little interesting. That's all I got to say. Out of here, guys, on a Friday, first Friday in the new year. First week of shows here. Been phenomenal. There's been a lot of growth on the YouTube and on the podcast and the audio feed as well over the past few weeks and months. Thank you. Nearing 3,000 subscriptions on the YouTube. If we got there before the kickoff of the Natty on Monday evening, that would be amazing. A challenge to you, Buckeye fans, to keep this channel growing. We're out here on a Friday. You can follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at JSteven07. If you want to follow Drake Toll, the host of Locked On Big 12, you can follow him as well at Drake C. Toll. That is Toll with 2 L's. This has been Locked On Buckeyes on a Friday. We'll see you next time.